Imagine this, you walk into a restaurant, just an ordinary day, looking for a warm meal, but instead you witness something extraordinary, the kind of story that makes your heart swell and leaves you thinking about it for days. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this, real, raw, and inspiring, are what we bring to you every single time. It all began on a rainy evening in the heart of the city. The small family-owned restaurant wasn't fancy, but it had a charm that drew people in, the smell of fresh bread, the clinking of glasses, and the low hum of conversations. Among the staff was Aisha, a waitress in her early 20s, always moving quickly between tables, her hair tied back neatly, her smile genuine though her life behind that smile was far from easy. She was the kind of person who carried quiet strength, someone who believed that no matter how small your role was, you could still leave a big impact. That night, a man walked in alone. He was well-dressed but not flashy, an expensive suit paired with a simple demeanor, the type of person most people would overlook, assuming he was just another businessman grabbing a meal after work. No one in the restaurant knew that this man was Armand Cole, one of the most powerful CEOs in the world, a billionaire whose companies spanned continents. But to everyone here, he was just another customer. He took a seat in the corner, watching the rain trail down the window as if lost in thought. Moments later, tension filled the air at a nearby table. A tourist family was struggling to order their food. They were speaking in broken English, pointing at the menu, their voices growing frustrated, embarrassed by the communication gap. The father's face was tight with worry, the children restless. Other customers began to glance their way, some impatient, others pitying. The young waiter at their table looked helpless, flipping through the menu with them, unable to understand a word. And then, quietly, Aisha walked over. She crouched slightly, smiled at the children, and spoke gently in their language, Italian. The father's face instantly softened, his shoulders relaxing as though someone had lifted a burden off him. The children lit up with joy, giggling at the surprise. She joked with them lightly, making them feel welcome, before taking their order smoothly. But it didn't stop there. At another table, an elderly woman was struggling to explain her dietary needs. She was from France, and no one understood her. Without hesitation, Aisha switched effortlessly to French, listening patiently and confirming the details. The woman smiled so wide, her eyes welled up with relief. A couple nearby was Spanish, struggling with a special request. They too found themselves speaking freely with Aisha, who transitioned into Spanish like it was second nature. Soon, she moved on to a German tourist, a Chinese businessman, and then an Arabic couple, handling each of their problems one by one, switching languages as if she was born to each of them. The room grew quiet, not with tension but with admiration. Customers watched in awe as this waitress, who had been invisible just moments ago, became the bridge between people from different worlds. She wasn't showing off, there was no arrogance, no pride, just pure kindness and an instinct to help. She made each person feel seen, valued, and understood. And in the corner, Armand Cole was watching every moment. For him, it wasn't just impressive, it was personal. Years ago, before he was a billionaire, he had been a struggling student in a foreign country. He remembered the loneliness, the humiliation of not being able to communicate, the sting of being dismissed because he couldn't make himself understood. Watching Aisha, he felt something stir deep within him. This wasn't just customer service, this was humanity at its finest. When Aisha finally approached his table, she greeted him politely, her tone humble, as if she hadn't just changed the entire atmosphere of the restaurant. She handed him the menu, ready to take his order, but instead he asked her a question in another language, Japanese. Without missing a beat, she responded fluently. He chuckled softly, shaking his head in disbelief. "You're remarkable," he said quietly. She just smiled and replied, "I just try to help where I can." Dinner passed, and when it was time to leave, Armand didn't reveal who he was. He paid the bill generously, leaving a tip so large the cashier had to double-check. But more than money, he left a note on the receipt that read, "The world needs more people like you. Don't stop being who you are." The next morning, Aisha returned to work, not knowing her life was about to change. Within days, the restaurant received a call. An anonymous donor had offered to fund a scholarship program for employees who wanted to study further. No conditions, no strings attached. Later, she discovered it was Armand Cole himself. He had been so moved by her compassion and talent that he decided to sponsor her education, giving her the chance to chase dreams she had buried under the weight of financial struggles. What touched him most wasn't just her knowledge of 6 languages, it was the way she used it. Not for prestige, not for recognition, but to serve, to make others feel less alone in a world that often feels cold. Her kindness had reached him more deeply than any business deal ever could. This story reminds us that greatness is not always measured by titles, wealth, or status. Sometimes, it's hidden in the quiet acts of service, in the way we treat strangers.